The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink TV, its sponsors, or partners.
Hi, I'm Gloria McCluskey. You're watching Destination Dartmouth. My destination today is here on Albert Street, the studio of the world-renowned Canadian artist Tom Forrestall. Tom, thank you so much for being here. I feel really privileged to have the opportunity to sit down and chat with this world-renowned artist.
Well, that's a mouthful, Gloria, but anyway, whatever it is, I must say. And really, I'm honored and delighted you'd think of me in such a way. It's a pleasure to have you up here and see my new renovated studio. It was such a mess before, seaweed hanging out of the roof.
So Tom, how long have you been painting?
I've been painting ever since I was a child. Dad, a carpenter here in town, well, from the valley originally. Dad, he didn't paint or anything, but he could draw for us kids. And he used to draw for us, and the rest of them I don't think were overly impressed. Mike and Wink and Kitty, they thought it was all very nice, but didn't interest them that much. But I don't know, it twigged with me when Dad would say, draw a giraffe, he'd draw a giraffe, and draw a cowboy, he'd draw a cowboy, you know. And then granted, if I saw them today, they'd be pretty funny, crude little things.
But it got you interested.
But for a little kid, you know, 5 years old, 6 years old, oh, wow, that's impressive. You see that line trail out in that old carpenter's pencil and turn into a cowboy or something. Well, that was magic. So that stuck with me all
So
my
when
life.
did you switch from drawing to painting?
Well, I'm pretty early. I mean, I remember my sister, Wink, my older sister, had watercolors, and I can remember at one time watching her paint with her watercolors, and I said to her, and I remember this, and I said to Wink, I said, can I try them? And she said, no, you'll only ruin them. You'll only ruin them. So I always remember that. But bit by bit, I suppose, 10, 12 years old, I started painting with watercolors and crayons and all, and then oil paint, you know, and so on and so forth. And then we had we went back down to the valley in the early 50s because my old grandfather, the old chief, the old police chief, was getting old, very old. He lived to be 98, but he was up in his late 80s, early 90s. So he was by himself. His wife had passed away. So we went back to the valley to be with him, and I finished high school there. And then we had a very good teacher there, a guidance teacher. Her name was Babcock. I think she's passed away now. But she used to paint a bit, so she kept an eye on the paintings. And she said, you know, I said, I'd like to study art. And she said, you know, you should think about going to Mount Allison. There's a very good teachers there, Lauren Harris and Alec Colville and Ted Pulford.
Oh, Alex Colville was there.
Yeah, Alec, everybody knows Alec Colville. And so I went to Mount Allison in 1954. And there I met the Pratts, Christopher, and Mary was Mary West in those days.
Yes.
She's from Fredericton. Her father was a judge. And later I used to teach him painting classes. Anyway, great old guy, terrific man. But anyway, and Mary, and then all the different ones, and Alec. And we stayed friends all those years, and of course Alec and Lauren and so on. It was a kind of a big family affair, you know. It was a small little group. There was maybe 8 or 10 in the class and all. So everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew everybody. So it was good that way.
So when was your first painting on exhibit?
Oh, well, when I was a student, I used to send them to exhibitions, and from then on, then of course I in 1956, I think it was 57, I guess, I received one of the first Canada Council grants. I think they only granted 7 or 8 of them that year. Helen Creighton got one, and I got one.
Oh, isn't that
and and mine was to travel in Europe for a year and travel and study. I didn't want to go to an art school and stay in one place.
No.
I wanted to see as much of the art as I could, and we did. I got married with Natalie, and I got married, and away we went. And we spent a marvelous year riding on bicycles all over Europe. Oh my gosh, we went hundreds and thousands.
And painting as you went?
Hmm?
Painting as you
well,
traveled?
sketching. We couldn't carry much on the
Sketching,
bicycle. I had little notebooks, and I used to sketch.
Do your sketching?
I didn't do enough painting, but anyway, we had a great year. It was a terrific year, and came back, and I had applied to Colin Mackay, who was president of UNB in those days, right. Was chairman of the board of the building committee for the Beaverbrook Gallery. And I read in the paper that, I think it was about 1956 or 57, that Beaverbrook was going to build a gallery and have his paintings there and donate them and so on and so forth. And I wrote to him and I said, well, I have this grant, but I'd be very interested in a position there of some sort. And he said, okay, very good, your name's on the top of the list. There's nobody applied yet. So I said, well, I was going to Europe on this grant, and he said, when you come back, give us a call. So
very good.
I was back.
So
anyway.
Tom, I'm just surrounded beautiful paintings there. I don't imagine you have any idea of how many paintings you've done.
No, I've really lost track of them, and I've lost a lot of them. They've gone out into the hinterland or the ether or wherever they go, and every now and then they turn up. Oddly enough, when I get a painting finished, building up to it, the process of doing it is quite exciting, quite challenging. When I get it done, I'm always disappointed in it. I feel, well, if I'd done this or done that, it might have been better. I look at it and say, well, if I'd done this, the cat, I look at it. And then if I don't see it for maybe months or years, maybe, sometimes some I haven't seen for 25 years, suddenly I see them again, or go to a home. And
you're happy with them.
Well, this is it. Then I said, well, you're not half bad, you're pretty good for my efforts. Let's be friends anyway, if we can't be lovers.
Tom, anyway. Your paintings are wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you.
And you do watercolor.
Well, I do. I mainly, of course, drawing is my great passion.
Yes.
Then I do a lot of watercolors. I've done thousands of watercolors.
Yeah.
The watercolors are the most enjoyable side of painting, because you go outdoors to the real place, and you sit there with the real place around you, and you're dominated by it. And there is an experience there that you don't have in the studio. And it's an experience of sitting there maybe for a couple of hours, not much more than 2 hours it takes me to do them, because the light shifts, especially on a sunny day. And you might be out in the middle of winter, cold weather and everything. My dear old friend Don Baker, you probably know Don and Kathy. Don, well, he passed away now, yes. 2 years ago now. And Don and I painted together for 30 years.
Oh,
we'd go out in the winter.
I didn't know Don painted.
And Don he was an engineer, but he was very, very capable. So we'd go out, and I would go out sometimes by myself in the middle of the winter. And Natalie would make me a jug of hot chocolate or something like that with sugar in it and stuff. And I'd get out there, and after about an hour, you were starting to shiver a bit.
Yeah. And your hand would be kind of
and you started to drink some of that, and you'd soon warm up and sparkle up, and away you'd go again. Yeah. Shivers. It was, they were always an experience. Then, back in the studio, I sort of contemplate these watercolors and the drawings and so on, and out of them comes the egg temperas, and the egg temperas are always done in the studio. And they're done with the help of the sketches, of course, from the real place. But it's almost, the words of Wordsworth come to mind. He said, when Wordsworth would go for a walk around the Lake District, Windermere or Buttermere, or one of the big lakes up there, and come back, and he would write his poetry in recollection of the walk.
Tom, we're going to take a break.
Sure thing, yeah.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about egg tempera.
Okay, good idea. Great.
We'll be right back. Hi, we're back. Tom, we're going to talk about egg tempera.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Tell Tell us what it is and how you do it.
Well, most of the paintings you see around us here are done in egg tempera. The watercolors are much looser, freer. The watercolors might take a couple of hours as they do. The egg temperas take much longer. They're more planned, they're more contemplative, and they're always done in the studio because the egg tempera and the mixture and all that, you couldn't take it out, or some people could, but I couldn't lug it around outside. So I keep it for the studio work. And as I said before, there's a passion for drawing, and my most enjoyable sign is watercolor, but the egg tempera is done in the studio or somehow or other most satisfying. And egg tempera is a bit of a mystery to a lot of people. It's a very, very ancient, it's probably the second oldest way of painting. It goes way back to perhaps the Egyptians, or further back even, might even go back to the cavemen. Oh, wow. So it's a very, very ancient way of painting, and very incredibly permanent. Also, it's incredibly beautiful. It's the only medium that you can paint with that actually gets better and better as it ages. It becomes more luminous and more opalescent.
So where does the egg come in?
Now, the egg comes in because the egg, and it's the yolk of the egg, not the white. No. You separate, when you open the egg up, you separate the white and the yolk, and you use the yolk. And the yolk is used as a binder for the colors, because the pure powdered colors I have is just, that's all it is pure color in a powdered form. And if you took some of that powdered form, mixed it with water, you brush it on for a minute, when the water dries, it goes back to powder again. Oh. If you took the same pigment, we'll say blue or whatever color, mixed it with linseed oil, you'd have oil paint. If you mixed it with gum arabic, you'd have watercolor. Mix it with polymer emulsion, you'd have acrylic. Mix it with egg yolk, you have egg tempera. And it's about equal amounts of egg yolk and pigment. Generally speaking, the egg yolk, as it comes out, is a little too thick, so you add a few drops of water. There's no